A Ghost Story is a film that debuted at Sundance earlier this year and got picked up by A24, the same company that has made movies like Free Fire and Ex Machina. The movie starts out with a couple, played by Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara, and Casey Affleck's character dies in a car crash not too far from the house, but he manages to come back to life. So he goes back to the house, his girlfriend moves out of the house, leaves, and he is just stuck there, having to watch new people come into the house, leave, and yada 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 yada. This is a movie that, when I first heard the title, because I actually never saw a trailer for this, I assume I'm not alone on this, thought it was a horror movie. It wasn't until I talked to a couple of friends from work that already saw the movie, and they said, yeah, it's not really a horror movie at all. It's far from it. It's a drama. It's a slow-paced drama. And I can always be in the mindset for a slow-paced movie. However, with the case of A Ghost Story, there are movies that are slow to build up tension, or in this film's case, atmosphere. And then there are movies that are slow that test your patience for how slow it is. I'm sorry, I wanted to like this movie, but this is incredibly slow and dull and pretentious. Now, I actually do like the premise of the movie. The spirit of this dead guy who goes back to the house but realizes that he can't leave, and he can't really even fully interact with the people around him in a way where he can communicate with them. He can do things to kind of fuck with them, but he can't really interfere with their actions. And it's a neat concept. I really like the concept, and the movie does have a really beautiful look to it. Even if it can get a little too artistic with the aspect ratio and the fact that the corners are kind of smooth and rounded, sort of like when you watch an old 16mm film. And there are a few points in the movie that did move me emotionally, but this is a real test of patience. This is a movie that is clearly not for everyone. Like I said before, I can tolerate movies that are slow as long as they kind of build up to something. Alien is a very slow movie that I love. It Follows is a very slow movie that I love. I know I'm mainly describing horror movies, but I can tolerate slower films. This one, not so much, because with the premise, this should have been a short film. This should have been a movie that was 45 minutes, maybe an hour long. I would have liked it a little more. It would have gotten the Academy Award nomination for Best Live Action Short. But an hour and a half is just way too much. This movie's actually not even an hour and a half completely. It's just 3 minutes under. And there are a lot of points where it just goes on forever. And there are things that just come across as incredibly pretentious. There's this scene involving a hipster at a college party that goes on this tirade, not really tirade, but more like a conversation about life, where we come from, what happens afterwards, what's going to happen in the future. And I won't say it's out of place because it then feeds into the last act of the movie, but it just came across as a little too much. But the worst thing, the thing that really tests your patience, is a scene soon after Casey Affleck has died, where Rooney Mara is in her kitchen eating a pie. And it's a scene that goes on for, I don't know because I didn't time it, but it felt like it went on for 10 minutes. It's just 10 minutes of watching Rooney Mara eat a pie on the floor in her kitchen. And maybe this is nitpicking, but she's eating it in a way to where you can't really eat a pie like that. It's one of those things where you just want to shout out, "Cut! Cut!" I don't know, that's a scene that just did not work for me at all. And even in the best reviews, that seems to be the biggest criticism. Is there anything else good about it? Well, again, I did like the premise. I think as a short film, it could have worked a lot better. I do like the performances, but it's kind of hard to really critique the performances since Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara aren't really in the movie for that much. And it's mostly more of a mumblecore movie than anything. And again, it does have a gorgeous look. The cinematography is beautiful, and there are a few points of the movie that did hit me emotionally. But other than that, I'm just not into this one. I'm not going to say you're an idiot by watching this. I mean, I'm sure more people will say I'm an idiot for not appreciating this movie. But I'm sorry, it just didn't do it for me. And with the ghost itself, I feel like the decision to make it that white blanket ghost with 2 holes for eyes was silly. It just took me out of the movie several times. You almost expect two things to happen whenever you see that ghost. You expect it to A, pull out a brown paper bag and say, "I got a rock." Or you expect it to have those really big 70s style glasses and just stand in a corner like Michael Myers in Halloween. I won't say that it's a bad movie because I do get what it's trying to do, and it does have its small audience that will appreciate it. But for me personally, it just didn't work. So for me, I gotta say, don't waste your money on it. This movie just did not do it for me. It's really slow paced, like unnecessarily slow. It's often very, very pretentious, especially when you get into the third act. That's where it's probably the most pretentious. And while I do like the concept of the movie, it's not strong enough to sustain an hour and a half. This movie honestly made me think back to Tree of Life, the Terrence Malick film from 2011, which when I first saw it, I hated it. But after a couple viewings, I was like, okay, I appreciate it more, but this is just not my movie. Tree of Life is better than this movie, to be honest, because it has a little more to say, and while it is pretentious at points, it's not as pretentious as this movie can be. This movie just pretty much has a giant red stamp that says pretentious. So that's all I have to say. I didn't care for a ghost story, but I can't really say it's poorly made. It's not awful at all. And that's my review for Ghost Story. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment down below and tell me what your thoughts are on the movie, if and when you've seen it. And as always, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.